let's get into today's show. So it's a webinar on how to protect your rental income. We'll be focusing on our rent guarantee product. And along the way, we'll provide some tips as well with just basic tenant screening and some of the tools and services that we provide here at Single Key to help you do that process.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So yeah, thanks so much everyone for joining us today. Mac and I are here to discuss how to protect your rental income at your property. We're going to start off. Mac's going to give us a bit of a background about Single Key, how the company started, and then he'll also be doing a demo of our new QR code feature on our tenant report. And then I'll be stepping in to go over steps to protect your rental income, give a bit of an overview of our rent guarantee program, how we deal with tenants when they stop paying, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions you have as well at the end. So my name is Hannah. I am a rent guarantee specialist here at Single Key. And then Mac is our director of customer engagement here at Single Key. I'll let you give yourself a quick intro, Mac.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Mackenzie Wilson, director of customer engagement. Truly, I've been at a startup. I kind of mean we wear a bunch of different hats. A little bit of quick background is I also run the largest Facebook group in Alberta for landlords called the Alberta Landlord Community. We're about coming up on 5,000 members. And Single Key was one of the first partnerships I brought in the group to help kind of the homeowner and landlord community. And now I'm actually here as one of the directors, and it's been a fun journey. We can kind of tag along from that is how Single Key got started. So we got started just before COVID in 2019. Our CEO is Villa Laika. Before then, he was working in banking in Toronto, and then made that switch during COVID. And the early days here is he's working from his home office, and it's really an homage to our kind of our startup roots, where at that point in time there's just two employees, and you couldn't go anywhere. So he's got two large banners inside his small apartment. But fast forward to where we are now, we've over 120,000 landlords in the platform. I think we just hired a couple more people, so our team's now over 20 full-time employees with a handful of contractors to support the daily operations here at Single Key. We've been doing a lot of changes lately, so quickly to kind of give you an understanding of what we've got available. Our job here at Single Key is to reduce risk for you finding tenants, really at the beginning of that journey, and now along the journey of during your tenancy, which is where our rent guarantee product will fit into. I'll let Hannah cover those details. But we just offered a new international credit checking service called Nova Credit now. So basically that will cover about 80% of the world's population. You guys can now do credit checks on new Canadians, which I think is super amazing and powerful. It really prevents what's happening right now in the marketplace where tenants are typically offering months of rent up in advance just because they are that unknown entity. So this gives you a way to kind of credit check them, have a bit of a known entity, and it allows the tenants to keep more money in their pockets so they can start their life a lot sooner, which is great. We've also brought on TransUnion now as well. And what we've noticed having those two bureaus, and we can do dual credit checks now, is we actually noticed there is a decent discrepancy between the two bureaus. And I think our educated guess around that is because there's a cost to reporting from a business perspective, and most businesses typically only choose to report to one bureau over the other. And then I guess in the middle too is we also do rent collection. So it's the same way that you would pay a utility bill out of your checking account. We allow that to do the same process for your tenants. So it's automated. They can collect and pay rent. It does take a little bit longer than, say, an e-transfer. So a little bit of a decision-making process if you guys want to go that way or just continue using e-transfer. The nice thing about the rent collection is there is no reminder, and there is, once it's set up, it just go. You don't have to rely on your tenant having to remember to do the e-transfer. So we're always trying to move forward on reducing risk. One of the new features we've kind of brought out, it's actually been out live for a couple of months, but we are probably a little bit later this year going to allow tenants to order their own credit reports and bring them to a viewing. I think that would give them an opportunity to put their best foot forward. Of course, as you, the landlord, it gives you an opportunity to get a free credit report added to your Single Key account without having to pay for it. So what we've done here, I'm going to pop this on, is we know best practice is always getting information from a trusted source. So there's always, unfortunately, that underlying motivation. If a tenant's desperate enough, they might modify or Photoshop a credit report. So if they're giving it directly to you, your job is still to verify that it's authentic and accurate. So what we've done now to kind of make that process a bit easier is on all of our credit reports, you're going to notice that we've got a QR code. So I've got a report right here in front of me. It's got green scores across the top. It's for a John Smith, and we've got this QR code on the side of it. So if we go and open my iPad here, if they're at the viewing, they've given you a report, you can do this right in the spot. Scan that QR code. There you go. Touch too many screens there. And you can scan the QR code, and we'll ask you to do one of two things: either log into your existing single key account, or if you're a brand new user, you can create an account on that spot. And what this will do, it will add this tenant's credit score report directly to your account at no cost. So you're saving the $25 credit check-in fee. And what you guys can see right now is the credit score is in fact red. It's not as good. There's high debt payments and a low credit score of 535. Even though the original credit score, again on the side here, was showing green across the board and all that stuff. So we're trying to give you guys tools to mitigate that risk. And that's where this rent guarantee program fits in as well. So kind of a neat little thing we've got going on the side, and I'll give the floor back to you, Hannah.
Awesome. Thanks, Mac. So now that we've kind of learned a bit more about some of the products we offer here at Single Key and some of the steps that we're taking to help you as landlords mitigate risk when it comes to renting your property, I'm going to be going over a few steps you can also take to help protect your rental income once you've got potential tenants as well. So like Mac mentioned with the QR code tool that we recently introduced, one of the best steps you can take to protect your rental income is to make sure that you're following proper screening protocols when you're placing tenants at your property. Because before you sign a lease with someone, this gives you an opportunity to actually do those proper checks, call the references, and make sure that you're placing a suitable tenant at your property. Because once they've moved in, it makes it a lot trickier to evict a tenant when there is issues, right? So here at Single Key, we're always making changes to our products to be able to help you do that more efficiently, whether it's a QR code, we have the international credit check. And for newer landlords, I know it can be a bit of a daunting task, but we also do offer resources to help you make sure that you're following proper steps for screening tenants. I'm sure you've seen Mackenzie. He's on quite a few podcasts, and he's also run webinars on the past with proper screening techniques that you can use when looking at reports and qualifying tenants. We also have our Single Key blog, and we're constantly updating that with best practices and tools and resources you can use when screening tenants. And finally, when you do run your Single Key report, if you have questions about the report or maybe you're unsure how to read it, we always offer a call that we can book with you to go through the report together and help with any questions you have, and maybe go over any potential red flags that you see on the report before deciding if you want to move forward with that tenant or not. The second step to help protect your rental income would be to automate your rent collection. So one of our tools here at Single Key is our rent collection tool. You can set this up with your tenant initially when they move in. So we'll pull the rent from their account every month and then deposit it to your account. That being said, I know some landlords prefer to do an e-transfer or check as well. That's totally fine. I always recommend, if you are going that route, and even if you're using the rent collection tool, if there ever is a late payment, just to make sure that you're issuing the proper notices to your tenant as well, just so they understand that you're serious about the rent being paid on time, and you have all of the proper documentation in place if there are any late payments by the tenant. And then finally, we also offer our rent guarantee program, because despite your best efforts, things unfortunately do arise with tenants where there could be a job loss or a breakup or roommate issues where tenants stop paying the rent and continue living at your property. And with the rent guarantee, we'll make sure that you're covered for the full rent amount for the time it takes to evict them, so you can still cover your costs and your expenses. So I'm going to go a bit further into that and everything that's covered with the rent guarantee. With the rent guarantee, the most important part is that it's going to cover your rent for up to 12 months for the time it takes to evict the tenant. So I know we have landlords here today from across the country in different provinces, and the wait times for an eviction can vary depending on the province you're in. So we'll cover you for up to 12 months to make sure that you're covered for the full time to evict the tenant in your specific province. We'll also cover you for up to 30 days of rent if the tenant breaks lease without giving you proper notice, so you have time to place a new tenant at your property. A lot of landlords are concerned about vandalism or property damage. If the tenant's upset you're evicting them and they cause malicious damage to your property, we'll make sure that you're covered for $10,000 there. In addition to the rent coverage, we'll also help you with evicting the tenant. So we'll cover you for $1,500 in paralegal and eviction fees, so you have the resources and the support to properly complete the eviction. And then with the rent guarantee, we'll also include the rent collection that we offer, and we'll reimburse you for the cost of 2 tenant reports that you would have paid for when screening the potential renters. So I'm also going to go through a bit of the process of what happens if you're on the rent guarantee and your tenant stops paying. So generally, we guide the landlord through this process. I know it can be a bit of a daunting task, especially if this is the first time you've gone through an eviction. So if you have a tenant that's at your property, you don't get the rent at the beginning of the month, you don't hear from them, you can let our team know, and we'll help send the notice of non-rent payment to the tenant. You can submit that request directly through your single key account, and then one of our team members will reach out to you. So we'll mail out the notice of non-rent payment. I know in Ontario here that's CN4, but we'll mail it out directly to the tenant, so we have confirmation that that's been delivered to them. And then if they don't pay within the notice period, we'll make sure to connect you with a local paralegal partner to help you with next steps to start that eviction process. Generally, for the first payment, it takes about 30 days to get you the first rent payment. But then for each month after that, you'll get the rent at the beginning of the month for the time it takes to evict the tenant. Awesome. I'm going to go over a few FAQs of questions that we on the rent guarantee team get asked quite often. And then we'll be happy to answer any of the questions you guys have been putting in the chat here as well. So one of the most common questions we get are, what documents do we need to start the rent guarantee? The great thing is we just need the tenant report, which you can run directly through your single key account. We would also need proof of income from the tenant. So that could be recent pay stubs, letter of employment. If the tenant is self-employed, they could provide recent bank statements and a notice of assessment showing what they pay themselves throughout the year. And then once we have that information, we've confirmed with you that the tenant's approved for the rent guarantee, we would just ask for a copy of the lease agreement once you have it signed with the tenant. And on that note, for the lease agreement, we would just ask that you use the applicable standard lease for the province you're in. So I know it varies in BC, they have their own lease, and in Ontario here, we have the Ontario standard lease you need to use. So we would just ask that you sign the proper lease agreement with your tenant, but you're welcome to add additional addendums to that as well. So question 2, how do I apply for the rent guarantee? This is another common question that we get. It's pretty simple. You can do it directly through your single key account. And as soon as you apply, our team is going to get notified so we can review all of the documents for you. You can see here at the top, this is a sample of what it would look like in your account here. It's basically just going to ask you for the property info, so the address and the rent amount. It'll let you upload all of the supporting document, so those tenant reports, proof of income from the tenant, and any other relevant documentation you've received. And then you can choose the payment option. So with the rent guarantee, you can pay either monthly at 5.5% of the rent, or you can pay annually upfront at 5% of the rent. We won't charge you until the rent guarantee's actually been approved, though. So it will ask you what payment option you prefer when you apply, but we wouldn't charge your card until we've actually approved the rent guarantee for you. And finally, what are the tenant eligibility requirements? So this also goes hand in hand with reviewing the report, and that's why we always offer to book a call with you to go through the report to help confirm that the tenant would qualify for the rent guarantee, or if you have any other questions about the information there. We're generally looking at a few things. We want to make sure that there's no bankruptcies within the past 3 years. And then we'll also look at the proof of income documents. We just want to make sure that the rent to income ratio is below 45% based on the gross household income. So with the proof of income documents the tenant provides, we'll generally take a look at them. We want to make sure they're recent. So if your tenant provides you a pay stub from like 3 months ago, it's a good idea to follow up to get something more recent before applying for the rent guarantee. And we also want to make sure that that documentation has the tenant's name on it. So one thing we see quite often is people will send screenshots from their banking app or maybe from their HR portal from their phone, but it doesn't show the tenant's name anywhere on that screenshot. So it's always a good idea to follow up and get PDFs of their actual pay stubs or a PDF bank statement if possible. So now we're going to dive into the live Q&A, so we'll be able to answer any of the questions that have come up in the chat here. So the first question, what does it mean by report payments to bureau? So I think, Sid, you're referring to our rent collection tool. With our rent collection, we're basically collecting data on the tenant's payments, and we will be able to report that to the credit bureau.
Okay. Any plans to add police checks to the comprehensive report? We have a background check right now that we do, and this is actually a really good question too, because it depends what province you're in. and it depends what the local tribunal has done. Unfortunately, in most provinces at this point in time, for hearings that relate to landlord-tenant issues, so the Land Tenant Board, for example, in Ontario, or it'd be called RTDRS in Alberta, and there's similar names for the BC and Saskatchewan as well. They don't have an online access to allow us to pull them into the report. So those are typical databases that we don't have. Our online check is really an online record check where if they've got any, let's say, arrest warrants or any kind of public notices where they've put information out there as a press release, that's the type of information that we get caught on our online record check. What information is required to get the report? Basically, it's as little as a name and email. Obviously, I think at this point in time, you've probably done a viewing or had some sort of contact through the lead from a rental listing. So you probably already have the information you need to run the report. Okay, we got a long one here. What is all that you cover under the tenant report? And what are your sources? Like, can I get that on credit report with Equifax TransUnion? You also provide on results and background checks, court orders, and such. What's the reliability on that? Okay, so we already spoke about the background checks, but one thing, I guess the other thing too that's changed this year is we used to use a third-party provider to get our access to Equifax, but now we've been able, and we've been really excited about this. We have direct access to both Equifax and TransUnion. We pull directly from those two bureaus, and you're given the exact same information that banks or car dealerships use before they lend out on a mortgage or sell you or finance on a brand new vehicle. So it's the full financial history, all of the trade lines and related credit products. It also includes credit inquiries, and then if there's bankruptcies, collections, all that stuff is listed on there as well. Also, these three are offered as individual services as well. No need to sign up for all three. Yeah, we kind of did skim by that. So when you can create a single key account. There's no cost to create that. It's free, and that will give you access to a couple tools that we don't charge for, which is our rent collection. That's free for the first 3 transactions per month. Then after that, you can do some bulk pricing. Then also we have a pre-screen form. So if you've got your rental listing up, you could put a link on your rental listing saying, "Hey, if you're interested, apply here." And it covers the same information that you would do on your initial phone call when you receive an interested prospective tenant. You kind of cover the basic logistics: how many people are moving, when are you available to move, have you given proper notice to your current landlord, do you have pets, things of that nature that you should be asking before you go and book your viewing is what gets covered on our pre-screen form, and that's free to use, and it comes with a dashboard as well. So all those leads get organized in a dashboard that you can sort and organize and go through and review. How much these generally cost in legal support and eviction resolution as you cover up to 1,500? What is your estimate per experience? Hannah, I'll let you answer that for Ontario.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely varies from province to province. We do have paralegal partners that we work with quite closely for any evictions we're doing. So generally, with that being said, we're able to connect you with one of our partners, and because we do a lot of cases with them, that also helps us with keeping the costs low. 1,500 is generally enough to cover majority of the cases. There might be the odd corner case where it goes up to say 2,000, but generally we're able to keep it at 1,500 or below.
Yeah, and for Alberta, most evictions are under $1,000.
hmm And actually, I know for BC, I saw we had a couple BC landlords. Generally, 1,500 is enough as well.
Any promo code to participate all after attending these demo learning classes? No, we don't have any, unfortunately. How do you get start with a comp report? Yeah, so same thing as we mentioned before. First thing you want to do is create an account with us. That part's pretty quick. It's only a few questions we ask to get set up: your name, your email, a few other basic fields. And then one thing that we do require, because obviously we give you access to very confidential information or personal information, being someone else's credit score, we do require you to validate or confirm your identification before we can give access to that information. And that's done online through third-party service. And that's basically where you'll take a selfie of yourself and then take a picture of one of your government-issued IDs. And that can usually be a driver's license. I know some people use passport as well. And we just go through and run that check. And then once you've been verified, that will then give you access to view any credit reports.
Does single key check for any LTB notices issued against the tenants? So we do pull any publicly available judgments with our report. That being said, it's still a good idea to check your local jurisdiction. I think in Alberta, MAC, that's the RTDRS. And in Ontario here, we've got CAMLI to check those as well when you're doing your screening.
Yeah, and just to add on to it, I mean, definitely some resources to be checking. It is Canly. It's not perfect in the sense that not. I think actually, I wouldn't say, I don't know say the exact ratio, but not all judgments get uploaded, so it's not complete by any means. There's other services out there. This is popular in Ontario. It's something called Open Room. I recommend going on and taking a look at that. It's started by a group of landlords, and they actually capture judgments as well. And those are things that we're looking at in the future to potentially add into our database search for you guys.
It seems that the QR code shows slightly different info. Why is that? Carolyn, I think for the QR code demo, Mac had done that intentionally. So he basically showed an example of a report that a tenant had altered themselves. And with our new QR code feature, landlords will be able to see the actual information that we have available through their single key portal. So basically was showing that the tenant had altered the information before providing it to the landlord, which is a huge issue now with people sending altered Equifax or TransUnion reports, but our QR code solves that.
But yeah, and I guess the other thing too is it kind of helps out the tenant from their perspective is they only get one credit check done on their credit score when they run the report once, and then they're able to share as many times as they want. We'll probably, I know we haven't picked this part yet, but it's probably only going to be limited to either 30 to 45 days. And that's probably, you wouldn't want to stretch much beyond that for making sure it's a recent credit check. Okay, so how does it work when a tenant does not pay rent on time every month, different dates? So, Hannah, I know you kind of covered this already with late payment rent. Do you want to just cover that quickly from Ontario perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So for the rent guarantee, if the tenant is still paying the rent, generally we wouldn't evict them in this case, but there are options in Ontario. If you do have a tenant that's consistently paying late each month, you can issue a notice based on that. And I think we have a blog post about this. I can definitely share that with you afterwards as well.
Yeah, good point, Hannah. I'm glad you brought that up. We do have a bunch of resources on our blog from how to pre-screen tenants, how to do your interview when you're doing the phone call, to legal resources, including leases on each of the different provinces. So it's definitely worth checking out our blog, as we've put a lot of time and effort to give good quality resources for you when you're doing your landlording.
Exactly. And if you are on the rent guarantee and your tenant, it's the first week of the month and they haven't paid, you can always let us know and we'll help send the issue, or we'll help issue the notice anyway, because if the tenant doesn't pay, that's when we'd move forward with next steps. But if they do pay, then we could dismiss it. For damage insurance, is there a deductible? Yes. So for the rent guarantee, there is $1,000 deductible with the $10,000 malicious damage coverage. But that's the only deductible there. We would just ask that you get a judgment for the amount of the damages, and then we would pay out based on that.
Yeah, and why that's important is damages can be subjective. So we need a third party to validate and quantify the damages, which is your local tribunal in your province.
Exactly. And also for the rent guarantee, is this on the property or the applicant? This is a great question. When you're running the tenant reports, you would run them on each applicant. But for the rent guarantee, it's for the property. So if you have a lease with 2 or 3 leaseholders, the rent guarantee would be for all 3 of them. You wouldn't have to do like separate rent guarantee applications, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and probably to add on to that, Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong. If your tenants happen to move out and you bring new tenants in, let's say it's a student rental, you're able to maintain and requalify the rent guarantee for the new set of tenants.
Right, exactly. If you have new tenants getting on board, we would kind of review the documents like we did initially and help confirm with you that they would qualify as well.
Yeah, this is a great question. Does a credit check affect the potential tenant's credit score? Typically it's thought of there's 2 types of credit checks, a soft check and a hard check. It's kind of misleading, and here's why. So here at Silky, we do a technically it would be considered a hard check in the sense that you do see an inquiry show up in the credit score. But because we don't check for a loan amount, there's not a lot of weight behind our checks. Actually, there's really no weight. So there's little impact to the credit score, I would say, if any. Just to give this context, we do in a range of 10,000 or more credit checks a month. And I could count on one hand the many times someone has said it's affected their credit score. And usually when they bring that up, my gut kind of assumption there is there's probably something more going on. But that's kind of how it works. So if they do a credit check, say through a bank or a car dealership for say a $10,000 car loan or a mortgage, there's a lot more weight behind that check, and those are the ones that can potentially impact a credit score. And especially if they're shopping around, they're doing multiple checks. That's where they might be able to see that. But again, from Single Key's perspective, we do show up as an inquiry, but because we're not checking for a financial product, there's no weight behind our checks. Can a tenant
And
somehow stop the rent deposit that is linked from their bank account? I'll let you answer this question.
yeah, for sure. So for the rent collection, if there is a month where, say, the tenant lets you know they're going to be a few days late, you can always reschedule or skip the rent collection for that month. If, say, for example, they're going to send you an e-transfer instead. The only other way a tenant could stop the rent collection is if they issue a stop payment with their bank. But once the rent collection's set up, we'll automatically pull the rent from their account each month.
What coverage or insurance is there that Single Key can meet its obligations to cover the rent guarantee? Is there some type of policy or legislation, same as applicable to the insurance providers? I'll add a bit, then Hannah, I'll let you take this as
Mhm.
well.
For sure.
Something what I'm really proud about this is our rent guarantee product started before COVID, and it's actually gone through and survived through COVID, which can't be the same said about some of our competitors. In fact, we actually ended up acquiring one of our direct competitors, Neighborly, because they had some trouble going through COVID. So I think it's a really testament to how we've looked at the risk profile out there and put the requirements together to make this program, and we've built it from the ground up. Um, so that there's food for thought. I don't know if there's a legislation perspective, and I'm sure Anna, if you could add on to what I've said there.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And Samir, when we approve your rent guarantee, we're going to provide you with a rent guarantee agreement that outlines our obligation to you in the event that your tenant ever does end up defaulting. To add on to what Mac mentioned before, with us weathering COVID with the rent guarantee, we're backed by a third party reinsurer, so we're not taking on the risk directly either, and we'll make sure that in that rent guarantee agreement that I mentioned, all of that's outlined there for you as well. And after the webinar, we'd be happy to send you a copy of that to review if you'd like.
Who pays for the credit check, the landlord or the applicant? It's actually your choice. Other than if you're in BC, do your legislation, you have to pay for the credit checks. But in the other provinces, you have the choice when you're going through and putting the request in. You can pick for yourself to pay there, or if you want to push those costs onto the tenant, you can do that as well. How
How
long
long?
is the eviction process in Ontario right now? Anna, you got your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, it depends. For some of the more recent evictions we've done, it's been anywhere from 6 to 8 months. It seems like the wait times at the LTB, they aren't as long as they used to be. It's still, 6 months is still a long time to go without rent though. And then generally after you get the eviction order, it might be another month or so to wait for the sheriff to come if the tenant doesn't leave on their own.
Recollections plus pursuing collections of losses. Does the paralegal help? That would probably be like on a case by case, depending on who you're using for your paralegal, if they provide that service or not, because they are a third party. For the comp report, do you need approval from the potential tenant? Yeah, absolutely. So to run a credit check on anyone, you do need their written consent and approval. That's part of our online application. So when they sign up, they create an account, they go through and fill all the information. They've given you consent at that time to run the credit check. You cover Quebec? We do. What is the cost for the comp report? So yeah, we've got 3 offerings now. So we've got a single credit report for $24.99. We do a dual report from both Equifax and TransUnion, as kind of mentioned at the top of the show. We have seen noticeable differences because typically businesses, to reduce costs, they'll only report to one bureau over the other. And you can do a dual report for a 40% discount at $39.99. And now we have an international credit check and product, which is $59.99. Again, these costs can be shared or passed on to the tenant. And I think, at least from a lot of new Canadian perspective, the ability to quickly secure a home without paying months of rent up front, I've seen most of the uptake right now is a lot of tenants are happy to pay that application fee. How does it work with Single Key when landlord have to register multiple properties? I'm assuming this is towards the rent guarantee, and I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, so I think like Alex mentioned in the chat there, we do offer partner pricing and enterprise pricing. So if you wanted to book some time with us, we'd be happy to discuss our different options depending on how many properties you're looking to register. We'll make sure to send a calendar link out after the call here.
Do you help with legal representation if I have to obtain a judgment on property damage? Yeah, absolutely. We have a list of preferred eviction experts or paralegals in each of the provinces. You're certainly welcome to use your own if you already have an established relationship, or use one of our recommendations as well. What is the cost of the auto rent collection and the rent guarantee of single key? So the auto rent collection is free for the first 3 transactions. Then there is a fee going after that, and actually, I don't have that in front of me. I'm not sure, Hannah, if you know that one.
Yeah, I think so. After the first 3, it's $5 per transaction. So it'd work out to be like $60 for the year for each additional property. But that being said, if you're on the rent guarantee program, we include the rent collection tool for free for every property you have set up. The cost of the rent guarantee is either 5.5% if you wanted to pay monthly, or 5% if you pay annually upfront. The program does initially run for 12 months, so whether you pay monthly or annually, and then after that, it renews similar to a standard lease agreement. Sorry, it would be for the first 3 properties.
If this is a rent collection, it's the
Yeah.
transactions. So it'd be on a per lease basis. So if you've got 3 roommates that pay 2,500 per month for rent, then you'd have one collection for 2,500. If you've got a family or a single person that rents a unit, then that would also be count as one transaction. So it'd be on a per lease basis.
There's no HST. It's just a flat 5 or 5.5% for the rent guarantee fee.
For the rent collection, I have 12 months free on one property. So rent collection is free for 3 transactions per month ongoing. So as long as that lease is still active and you're still collecting funds, you can do it for free. Going beyond more than 3 rent collections per month is where that cost comes in.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's it for the questions. Thanks so much for joining us today, everyone. We'll make sure to send out an email afterwards. We've got a recording of the webinar for anyone who wasn't able to make it or if you wanted to rewatch it. And if you do have any other questions that come up about the screening or our rent guarantee program or the rent collection tool, we'll send a Calendly link as well. So you're welcome to book some time with one of our specialists.
Great. Well, thank you for spending your time with us and joining us on our single key webinar on how to protect your rental income. You guys take care and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Awesome.